One of these days, I'm gonna sit down and write a long letter to all the good friends I've known. And I'm gonna try to thank them all for the good times together. Though so apart we've grown. One of these days, I'm gonna sit down and write a long letter to all the good friends I've known. One of these days.
Thank you all for coming. We're gathering together in the majestic Kentucky Theater to honor Jake Gibbs, a wonder of a man. We gather to tell each other more about him, to comfort each other, to mourn, and most likely laugh, and to learn life lessons from our dearly beloved Jake. His way of living in this world and in this community has much to teach us. You don't have a printed program because that creates paper waste. So here's the three-part plan. Speakers, stand up for Jake, reception. Three main parts. First, speakers. These wonderful family members, friends, and colleagues of Jake's will each tell us about their connections to Jake and the meaning of his life in their lives. Second, we're going to turn up the house lights and discover a bit more about who is here and how Jake connected us. Third, reception and onward. We are not only in a theater that Jake worked to sustain and patronized often, we're in a theater that's going to start showing films right on time this afternoon. So we're aiming to take cues from Jake Gibbs and be crisp and to the point. We intend to finish and invite you out into the lobby for the reception by around 11:30. It might be a little bit later than that, we're starting a tiny bit late. I'll have more to say about all of that near the end. Our speakers will introduce themselves, except that I have the great honor and privilege of introducing Mayor Linda Gorton.
Behind you, you will see this theater's almost full. We knew it would be for Jake. And I must start out with an apology. As former Mayor Jim Gray, who's with us today, knows that we sometimes plan things and they don't go quite as they should, and I now know I have to be in Frankfurt by noon. So, I want to say just a little tiny bit about Jake. He was a member of a family you might not be aware of, the City Hall family. As the news of Jake's death flashed through the government center on Tuesday, employees' first reaction was disbelief, which quickly turned into deep sorrow. Jake was a favorite around the government center, understanding, supportive, and like most of our employees, a lover of Lexington. And he was always stopping you in the hall and talking about his next big idea. On council, Jake was well respected. He was a real warrior for his district. Calling himself a city kid, he enjoyed and fiercely protected our historic neighborhoods and downtown. He had lived near downtown since he arrived in Lexington in 1978. An avid walker and cyclist, Jake staunchly defended the environment, encouraging the growth of our urban forest and safeguarding our farmland. Almost a year ago, Jake approached me to tell me of his latest project, Trees Lexington, the pocket nurseries of tree seedlings which hundreds of our citizens would foster over the spring and summer, readying them for planting in November. For those of us who nurtured these baby oaks and maples, we not only did it for our future tree canopy, we did it for Jake. Now these seedlings are in the ground, building and growing for our future. When I see mine each day, I will forever think of Jake. Anita, in Jake's obituary, you encouraged people who want to honor Jake to read a book, call an old friend, ride a bike, walk somewhere you would normally drive, shop at a local business, plant a tree, start a home composting bin, or make a donation to Trees Lexington. I have one more suggestion. Wear blue jeans. Just like Jake. I'm going to officially declare Tuesday Jake Gibbs Blue Jeans Day. I expect to see a lot of blue jeans, not only in City Hall, but all over town. You know, Tuesday is a council meeting, a work session. And so I suspect many of our council members will be in blue jeans. And today we got a little bit of a head start because I've seen lots of blue jeans here. And council member James Brown and I are getting it started by wearing ours. I want to say to Anita and Delia and Delaney, our prayers are with you. Jake, we will miss your steady hand, your unshakable community spirit. You made your time on earth count for good. Rest in peace.
Our next speaker is John Gibbs, Jake's brother, and from now on, each speaker will introduce himself or herself.
Good morning. I'm John Gibbs. I'm Jake's big brother, smaller big brother. Knew him for 66 years, and I was truly honored to be his brother. There was just so much to admire about my brother. His intellect, his sense of humor, his commitment to community and family. But the thing I'll always remember about him the best is the way he was around little children. He just delighted in kids. When his great niece and nephew, Sadie and Connor, were just recently born, he was the first to drive up from Kentucky all the way to Pennsylvania to see him. I remember when Delia and Delaney and Sarah and Roddy, our children, used to get together every summer. After supper, Jake, or as he was known in our family, Jimmy, used to set up a speaker on the back deck, and he put on Van Morrison's Moon Dance. And then you'd see this long-haired leaping gnome bouncing around the backyard, around the tomato plants, hopping over pumpkins, with 4 little bird-like children hopping after him, like they had just imprinted on him coming out of the shell. Then when the music stopped, suddenly the 4 kids would all go in different directions, laughing, squealing, screaming, And Jake would run after each one of them, and he had this game where he would grab them and hug them and make them into a pretend burrito. And he'd sprinkle on cheese, he'd sprinkle on onions, a healthy serving of black beans, and then on to the next kid. And then they would all come in, and they'd just be beaming. And everybody went off to bed just happily. It was a wonderful thing to see. And what breaks my heart the most is Sadie just turned 4, Connor will be 2 in June. They've just reached moon dance age, and Jake won't be there to teach him how to moon dance. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kitty, and I am Jake's little sister. I was overwhelmed at witnessing the outpouring of love from my brother and his family. He was truly a great man. I have spent the last few days at home in Troy, reading the posts on Facebook. We all here realize how special he was, how he touched so many lives. I have my own perspectives of Jake being his younger sister, the baby of the family. My story of Jake proves how a person can change, or maybe evolve is a better word. Jake, or Jim as he was called, was 2.5 years older and 2 years ahead in school. Our Irish mother, I think, would have been thrilled if he was born on St. Patrick's Day, but instead he was born on March 18th. As my mother always looked at life positively, she always said her Jimmy was born between the feast of 2 great saints, St. Patrick on the 17th and St. Joseph on the 19th, his first claim to fame. We attended St. Paul the Apostle School and Catholic Central High School. I can't say that we grew up close, however we did play some games together that Jake always won. We went on Sunday rides to pick up our grandmothers or to go on picnics. One of our games was called Chevy and Ford, the only 2 makes of cars that were in the 60s pretty much. We each got to pick one, and then we counted and kept track of how many cars we saw. Another favorite was naming the brands of cigarettes and beer. Again, Jake used to beat me because he studied the brands of each when we helped in our Uncle Jim's store. Uncle Jim, who was named for it in his godfather. I know he felt I got more attention as a child, and he was probably correct. I think it was because I was born blind in one eye, and my parents worried about me more. All parents make mistakes, and I think what happened is they didn't think he needed as much attention. My dad, when I was an adult, described Jake as a child, a nice, quiet lad. I do know my parents loved him, but I think to them they felt they had been given a break. A smart kid who stayed out of trouble, they hit the jackpot. Our father was especially proud how intelligent Jake was. When Jake was in 6th grade, my parents were called in for a meeting with his teacher, Sister Mary Naomi. Sister Naomi felt that Jake had an attitude that he asked so many questions in history class. Our dad quickly smiled that at age 11, he knew more about history than Sister Naomi did, and she didn't want him to ask any more questions. Our dad loved to tell that story. Jake was a hard act to follow scholastically. Although I got good grades, I had to study for them. I don't ever remember Jake opening a book for a test, but he was always reading, mostly history. I have to take some responsibility of why I never felt he liked me. He was always kind of a cool guy, even when we were young, and I was not. I never learned to ride a bike or play sports. My parents were always worried I would get hurt. I had the biggest tricycle on the block. How embarrassing. For him, didn't bother me at all. Jake was also musical, the only one of us who took music lessons. He played the steel guitar. He and his friends even had a band. I sang a duet of Sweet Molly Malone at the annual St. Patrick's Day luncheon when I was in 4th grade and he was in 6th. It was not good. Actually, it was really bad. Another time, he might have preferred to have a different little sister. High school was more the same. My friend stopped over to see me Wednesday to offer her condolences. She remembered in high school that my brother was not very friendly to me and my friends, barely mumbling a hello in the hallway to us. My friend said that when she mentioned this to me in 9th grade, and I don't remember this, I said, "He's my brother, and you always have to love your brother." Also, a friend sent me a picture of his high school yearbook page this week. Under each student's name was listed their activities. Most people had about 8 to 10. The average, Jake had 1, German club. There must have been a rule that you had to have 1 activity in high school. He always marched to his own drum. He went away to the University of Rockport, and I 2 years later to nursing school in Amsterdam, New York. I was with him the night before Thanksgiving when I met my husband. We were both home for the holiday. Jake and his friend Steve and I went to a local bar for a few beers. I got engaged about a year later at age 21, planning for a September wedding when I just turned 22. That was the summer that Jake traveled cross country on his motorcycle. He called me and invited me to California. He worried that I was too young to get married and I needed to experience more of the world. I didn't go, but it did please me that he cared. And that he was wrong. I've been happily married for 42 years. We saw each other once a year as Jake always made a trip home every summer. And then he met Nene, and I was thrilled. I immediately saw that Nene got who Jake was, and they loved each other deeply. Some years later, they had Delia. She was born on my 35th birthday, one of the best birthdays of my life. The other best was when my granddaughter Mattingly was born several years later on September 7th. This is truly when I saw Jake. He was so in love with his baby girl, and equally when Delaney was born. I watched him soften. When Delia had surgery when she was 3, I spent some time in Lexington. I witnessed his passion for his family and his love of Lexington. The years have gone by. I am so proud how Jake and I developed a very loving relationship and accepted our differences. The last time we texted was the night before he passed, a group text with my other brother. I texted that I love both my brothers. He once told me after he had his girls, he always wanted me to be part of their lives and for them to know me. We both made that happen. When he visited each year, I always planned a special Delia and Delaney Day. It's kind of a known fact that I'm not the best driver. You must have heard about a fender bender I had that year. The girls were about 10 and 7. Before we left on our special time, he asked me to drive only 10 miles an hour and be really careful as I had his girls and they were so precious. I was a little insulted as I had been driving my own child around for several years with no problem. I watched Jake over the years become the loving, kind, tolerant, and passionate man that he was. I need to mention that he was also an unbelievable great uncle. My granddaughters Peyton and Maddie adored him. He came to the lake when they were visiting. My youngest granddaughter Mattingly was a little confused as to what to call him. I called him Jake as he preferred, but my husband always called him Jim. After we had a wonderful afternoon and evening, Maddie woke up the next morning saying, "I really like that Uncle Jay, and I want him to come back." The last time I saw Jake was this past summer. He, Nene, and Delaney came for a visit at Grand Lake. I was showing them a rough draft of a children's book that actually just got published last month that I had written. In one illustration, it had a picture of a double rainbow. He gently suggested that a double rainbow was not in the same sequence of colors. Who knew things like that, but Jake did. That's why I didn't have the illustration changed. Jake will be missed by so many. A great man, husband, father, brother, uncle, great uncle, and friend. The world is a better place because of that cool guy from Troy, New York. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Jim Happ. I live in California, and Jake and I were friends for 49 years. When he came to college at Brockport, we became really good friends right away. We both rode motorcycles. We both hated college. Jake was really working class, and so was I. We both needed to work our way through college. Our parents didn't have the money to pay for us to go to college, so we both had jobs pretty much right away, washing dishes, dining hall, stuff like that. Eventually, I'll add that Jake was 6'1" and 110 pounds. When he came to college, he was the thinnest guy I knew. He was like skin and bones and smoked cigarettes and drank beer, and it's like, wow, dude, you gotta put on some pounds here, man. At some point, we got jobs working at a supermarket together. He was the manager, the night manager, and our shift started at 11 o'clock at night, and we go to 7:30 in the morning, and there was just two of us in this big supermarket, and I was the employee, and he was the boss. It was great, except, you know, you're working all night, and you're going to college in the morning, you're not very smart at that point, and he was a stickler. He believed the way to do things was the right way to do things. And he made very few exceptions. One night, he made an exception and said, get on your motorcycle and go to Rochester, which was 30 miles away, and get us Bob Dylan tickets. I will cover for you while you're gone. About 3 months later, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, we had class at 8, and the machine broke to wash the floors in this supermarket, and he said, we're gonna wash every inch of floor in this store by hand, and we're not gonna go to school today, we're gonna skip college. And I was like, dude, no. I'm like, you can do that. I am going home at 7:30, and I'm gonna go to college, and I'm gonna go to bed after that, and you will still be here if you think you're gonna wash every square inch of this floor. So I think I was more practical than he was, but he was the boss, and he fired me. And we did not talk for 6 months after that. I did not appreciate being fired. In fact, on the way out, I said I quit, so he couldn't have the upper hand. Being in Kentucky, I just want to talk about Jake's athletic skills for a second. He had none. Kitty just informed me that his father, I didn't know how he learned this, but Jake loved to gamble, that was his skill, and play pool and drink beer. And they went to the Knotty Pine and Whitey's Pool Hall. I went to Troy several times. I was in a motorcycle accident going to see Jake when I was 18. And Jake's father was kind of a grumpy guy, gave up his chair for me to sleep in because I couldn't lay in bed with a broken arm. And so I met the whole family at that point in time. But anyway, I think Jake's father, I just found out, taught him the two-hand set shot, which, unless you're from 1942, you would not know about. Jake was Stephen Curry before his time, but he would only play for $1 a shot, and that was the only thing he could do was shoot set shots from 30 feet. So, and I know Rona's a basketball aficionado here, so she'd appreciate that. Jake lived hard. He lived a great life. We rode motorcycles cross country. We rode motorcycles from Maine to North Carolina. We slept on the ground. We didn't have money for motels. We had sleeping bags. We never thought we'd be normal. I mean, it turns out we were both really good students, and we both could read. He could read far better than me. He could do 200 pages a day. He did 200 pages a day until he died, and his selection was much vaster than mine. The guy was a professional reader. He's a professional walker, and you all talk about walking around Lexington. I want to point out that he didn't know how to drive a car until he was almost 30 years old, which made him walk, because in upstate New York, you cannot ride a motorcycle after October until April. So I had a car, and he'd be bumming rides all the time, because if he didn't, he'd be walking. In upstate New York, it's like below zero with 200 inches of snow. So he came to Kentucky. I actually bought him a Kentucky on motorcycles in 1978 to apply for grad school. He was nervous about coming down here, and he accepted and got into the PhD program at UK, which brought him down here to create his new circle of friends and family. And Jake and I both never thought we would get married to normal, sane women. I mean, we had low expectations. We never thought we'd have children. We had low expectations. And it turns out both of us succeeded on that front. We both have 2 kids, Delia, Delaney, Nini, and wonderful people, wonderful family. So, the last piece I want to talk about is alfalfa. So, he called me up, I think it was 1987, 88. He was a dishwasher at Alfalfa while he was going to college. This is 10 years after he came here, and I had a real job by that point in time. I was like working for Motorola, and I had long hair still, which I got away with for a little while. I didn't last forever, but Jake called me up and said, hey, Peter Fleming and myself and Tom and Kathy, these are people I did not know at the time, we're buying this restaurant. And I was like, hey, congratulations. I had never been to Alfalfa. I'd never been to Lexington. This is 30 years ago. And he's like, no, you don't understand. You're buying Alfalfa. He's like, you and Peter are the only ones with any kind of serious money here. And he did the used car salesman thing. He's like, I'm going to do sweat equity. And we're going to take your money and put it as down payment. We're going to buy alfalfa. I was stupid enough to do that. I did it. And my parents were coming about 3 months later on their way to Florida. They were from upstate New York. And I called Jake up and said, hey, my parents are coming, and they think I'm really stupid, and that they better have a good time. They're going to be at alfalfa. They're not vegetarian. You need to put something on the menu so they can eat. And my father, who was an accountant, said after being there, we had a great time. You'll never make any money because you have no parking and you're feeding beans and rice for $2 a plate. And he's like, you won't go broke because it's right across the street from the college. And we had a really good time. So I went there, I think another month or 2 later, and I asked Jake, and they also commented on how good the service was, which was unusual for alfalfa. You usually had to go out fast and get your waiter who was smoking pot. So, said, who waited on my parents? And he introduced me to this woman, Betsy Moses. Who's my wife. So my parents met my wife before I did. I don't think that qualifies for an arranged marriage. Finally, I wanted to say, because I can only take this story so far, Alfalfa eventually drove Jake crazy. I mean, he would call me weekly and say, this place is killing me. Because he was a perfectionist, he really was. And people are not perfect. We all have our idiosyncrasies, we all have our things, and I manage 250 people now in California, and nobody wants my job. They all think, oh, I'd like to have that title, but when you look at it, you have to manage 200 people, you're like, no, I don't want that job. And Jake had just had it with Alfalfa. He was not in politics yet, he was not on city council, but he had his hands full raising a family and teaching, and he was like, we're closing. And I'm like, no, we're not closing, because by that point I'd had a daughter, and we named her Helen after Helen Alexander, the cook at Alfalfa, who's here in the audience. So we've got little Helen, and I was like, you can't close Alfalfa and get rid of Big Helen. That does not work. So I was forced to buy him out, and I became the sole owner of Alfalfa. And moved it downtown, and he thought that was insane, but I bought into downtown Lexington thinking that it was a really good thing to have a restaurant like Alfalfa downtown, and it's still here today, so. I can't take this any further. I'm going to turn it over to Steve Kay, who can pick it up with City Council. I will say one other thing. Jake was, I think, a shitty Catholic student, because when he was running for City Council, this is just a minor little story, Nene went out and bought clothes for him, so you'd look normal. We're talking button-down shirt, we're talking a pair of khaki pants, and he was getting dressed. I was there at the house. He was getting dressed for his first debate or public appearance as a serious candidate for his first term, and he was putting on a clip-on tie. I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I never learned how to tie a tie. And I'm like, Nene, do you have a tie? And she's like, yeah, I bought some ties. And so they went upstairs, or she went upstairs and came down with a couple of neckties. And I tried teaching him, but he was like, no, just do it for me, please. So I put it on my head, I tied the tie, I loosened it, I flipped it over my head, I gave it to him, I did the other one so he'd have an extra one in his closet. You guys are talking about wearing jeans. I don't know if he can still tie a tie to this day. So, anyway, love you all. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. I'm Steve Kay. I'm the city's vice mayor. And I didn't plan this with Jim, but I'm going to pick up on some of the themes that he's already introduced. The night before Jake passed away, he was at a... practiced this at home and this didn't happen. The night before Jake passed away, he was at our house for a political event. In fact, he was the first one to sign up when I sent the invitations out. And he was close to the first person to arrive. He was wearing that beat-up leather jacket, so familiar to everyone who knew him. I hung it up for him, and I swear it weighs a good 10 pounds. I mentioned that jacket because I'll come back to it. At some point in the evening, Jake found me in the crowd because he had some questions for me. He had begun working on ways to encourage residents to take more responsibility for fall leaf disposal so that we could reduce or eliminate the present expensive collection system. A few days earlier, I had told him that I'd pile all the leaves in my yard on the garden. Now he was working on a set of examples of alternatives to share with council, and he needed more details about exactly what I did. This was classic Jake. He had identified a problem, he had begun working on it, and he took every opportunity to keep working on it until it was done. For Jake, his work as a council member included wherever he happened to be and whenever the opportunity arose to keep making progress. That's how we started from scratch with a council task force, and in a little over a year got the nonprofit Trees Lexington up and running. That's how we got hundreds of people to plant tree nurseries in their yards. That's how he got increased city attention on bike and ped issues. That's how he got so many things done for 3rd District. Always modest about his own role, never looking to take credit, just trying to get something done that needed to be done. Now about that jacket. Jake was walking downtown on Richmond Road toward town one day, dressed as usual in well-worn jeans and a beat-up leather jacket. He stops at the light at Midland. A car pulls up to the light. A person opens the passenger side window and beckons him over. She hands out a shopping bag full of food and says, says, "Here, I hope this helps." I like the story mostly because Jake found it to be so funny. He was tickled that someone would take him for a homeless person. And I share that story with you now because it also tells us a lot about the kind of person Jake was. To say he dressed down would perhaps woefully understate the matter. And though he never told me this explicitly, I believe that Jake dressed down because he understood that some people can't dress up. They can't afford to dress up. And so the kind of clothing one wears functions in society as a marker of class and status. Jake was actively interested in working against that system of categorizing people. Yet, when Jake got on council, he compromised. He kept a set of dress-up clothes in his office. Jacket, slacks, shirt and tie, the whole deal. He changed out of his jeans and into that costume for all the various meetings in council chambers. Jake compromised because he thought if he did not dress up, most people would mistakenly interpret that as a sign of disrespect for council and for his role as a council member. He did not want to risk that. He also trimmed and shaped up his beard a bit, though I suspect Anita may have literally had a hand in that. So I could go on for a very long time with more examples of Jake's character and accomplishments. I'll close with a brief summary. Jake was a wonderful council member, a wonderful member of the community, a wonderful father, a wonderful husband. He was a close friend and treasured colleague of mine.
We have an agreement between us that one of us will finish if the other one can't. So I will finish these last 3 sentences. Jake was a close friend and treasured colleague of mine for decades. He enriched my life in too many ways to recount. I loved Jake. He was a wonderful man, taken from us too soon. I will miss him dearly.
Jake was first my teacher, he was my employer, he was a mentor, and most importantly, he was a friend. I worked at Alfalfa's with Jake in the 90s, starting in the early 90s, the Jake and Peter years. A typical weekend brunch saw a line of people on the sidewalk out front, waiting for the doors to open. This line was often interrupted by an old Chevy pickup truck, Jake's truck, parked smack dab in the middle of the sidewalk in front of the kitchen door, with the call to kill your television stuck right into the back bumper. Inside the restaurant was the pre-opening hustle, grits bubbling on the stove, potatoes frying in giant cast iron skillets, Jake going back and forth through the kitchen, dodging cooks, servers, dishwashers, as he moved produce from the beloved truck to the walk-in cooler in the alley. And Jim already touched on what else was going on in the alley, so I won't go there. In the dining room, cinnamon coffee brewed, while servers wrote specials and drew trippy designs on the chalkboard. Peter had a towel draped over his shoulder while he counted money for the register. The New York Times crossword folded, ready on the employee table. There's a vibe of creativity, of intellectual curiosity. That's a magnet for the community. And that vibe was curated, I believe, by Jake and by Peter. Their values lived in that restaurant. I first met Jake in his American history class. One of our first assignments was to write a paper on a book of our choosing, which of course had to do something with a period of American history. I was young and airheady, and I picked out some vapid novel about pioneers. I took it to his office, and I was first struck because he had a really cool picture of Patti Smith up in his office, and I was like, okay, you're cool. Patti Smith and a pickup truck and a motorcycle. Anyway, I hand him the book, and he kind of reads the summary and flips through it. He's like, well, why the hell would you want to read this garbage? And, he's like, here, hands me The Jungle by Alfred Sinclair. Hello, socialism. My husband actually had a similar story with Jake, turning him on to Howard Zinn and Peter Kropotkin. And my husband, Matt, he credits Jake for steering him toward a livelihood that is purpose and values driven. Jake also gave Matt and I our first jobs at Alfalfa. I imagine him convincing a probably rightfully skeptical Clay and Lisa that they should give me a chance on the Saturday dinner prep shift. Similarly, when Matt went to Jake to ask for a job, his first reaction was, well, you know, we don't really need anybody right now. I don't know. Oh, hell, we'll make it work. Yeah, sure. So he was an opportunity giver. He was a steerer of people to things that he knew would probably work for them and be right for them. And these reminders of this pop up in my life all the time. You know, the fact that like my family's favorite dinner is alfalfa lasagna, something I never would have known how to make if he hadn't convinced the cooks to give me a job. One of the opportunities that I'm most grateful for, I'm grateful to Jake and I'm grateful to Nene, is that they invited me into their home and into the lives of their baby girls, their joy. Watching them parent those girls together with such love and witnessing Jake's already big heart grow so much bigger was such a privilege. So, thank you, Jake. Thanks for being a mentor. Thanks for being a teacher. Thanks for opening my mind, for steering me in the right directions, for teaching me how to properly use a paintbrush to be grown up. I'll tell you that later. Thank you for bringing me my alfalfa family and bringing me into your family. Thank you, Jake.
As Rebecca comes, I would just like to tell the people who are in the back that there are at least 30 more seats down front, and we're not done. So please come and make yourself comfortable as we continue.
I'm Rebecca Glasscock. Jake and I taught at Lexington Community College, now Bluegrass Community and Technical College for years until we retired a couple of years ago. Having an office in the same suite as Jake, I saw him quite frequently over the years. He was always kind, always interesting, always took the high road on things. That was what we knew would be Jake. Around 2002, Carol Hunt, a now retired humanities professor, heard Coleman McCarthy, the author of I'd Rather Teach Peace, speak, and came back to our college saying that we needed to start a peace studies program. At the time, it was a groundbreaking sort of thing, but Jake was all in. He developed a course entitled Historical Perspectives on Peace and War. When our program went through all the hoops and was finally approved, he was a member of the Peace Studies team and he taught the segment on the history of peace. I always looked forward to those weeks when Jake would be teaching, so I know firsthand that he was a wonderful teacher. Now, many of you are likely familiar with the Rate My Professor webpage. Generally, students who take the time to go in and put their opinions, they either hate the professor or they love the professor, and usually there's a combination of both. Yet when I looked at Jake's reviews, an astounding 100% of the students who had posted said they would take another class with Jake. Every semester, he had students who came to talk to him after class, and not all of them were to ask about how they were doing in the class or what they needed to do to make an A. A lot of times it was to talk about history and to talk about life. And going into his office was an education in itself. Oftentimes, people who are book lovers, they will have a big stacks of books and papers all over the place, really kind of a mess, but not Jake. In his office, with his imaginatively placed bookshelves in every available space were hundreds, actually probably thousands of books. One of his projects was collecting the little blue books that were published starting around the end of World War I. These pocket-sized books were intended to encourage everyone to read. By the time publishing stopped, over 2,000 titles had been published. Jake collected these, and with the exception of maybe one or two titles, he had the whole collection, and I think some of them are out front today. We all, in our division, and really in the college as a whole, knew we had a treasure in Jake. He was highly respected for his intellect and also for his low-key way of getting things back on track. In meetings, he'd sit and listen some more. Then, when he spoke up, nobody would be talking over him because we knew that he had something reasonable and important to say, and he always did, without fail. Before transitioning into retirement, he put himself out there in another way. He ran for District 3 Council. I, along with lots of others, went door to door for him. After he won, he gained a reputation for being a good, caring council person. Our neighborhood, Pensacola Park, found out just how good and caring when we began the process in the fall of 2018 to get historic designation for our 400 plus homes built mostly between World War I and World War II. The neighborhood near Central Baptist Hospital houses middle and working class families. The process for historic designation was really so difficult, and honestly, I'm not sure we would have succeeded had we not had Jake's steady guidance. His eloquence in speaking on our behalf made so much difference, and we are extremely grateful. So at the moment, our neighborhood and also the people at the college are stunned at the loss of Jake. We're already thinking about what to do to honor his memory. In our neighborhood, there's a little park that we will perhaps name, or probably will name, in his memory. And at school, I'm told by the college's vice president that within 2 hours of public notice of his death, there were already calls to establish a scholarship in his name. That scholarship will be established. And finally, just for myself, Jake was one of the smartest and nicest people I've ever known, and I will miss tremendously that kind of smile of his and his wisdom and the way that he was always constantly in pursuit of the greater good.
My name is Delaney Gibbs. I'm Jake's youngest daughter. I know that a lot of people knew him in a lot of different ways, but there's only two people who knew him as a dad, which is me and my sister Delia. So we just put together a list of things that we wanted you to know about what he was like as a dad, because a lot of people didn't see that side of him. And this list is really abridged, and it's not exhaustive, but it's still really long. So some of you might know this, but he actually didn't think he wanted to have kids, kind of like Happ mentioned. And but then he said that when he had Delia, he realized she was so great that he needed a spare. So having me with his idea, and he called me the spare, luckily. When he brought Delia home from the hospital when she was a baby, he put on his favorite Grateful Dead song, which was Sugar Magnolias, and he danced her around the house on Preston Avenue. He instilled a lifelong love of reading in both of us. As small children, he read the same picture books to us over and over and over and over and over again, and he never complained about that. And then when we were a little older, he read us the first 4 Harry Potter books. But by the time the 5th ones came out, we decided we were ready to read them on our own. So he got us each our own copies, and when I finished mine, I asked if he wanted to read it, and he just said, "No, thank you." That's when I realized that he actually didn't really like the books at all. But me and him have really similar tastes, so we also read a lot of books together that he liked. So he read me Lord of the Rings, and we also read a whole lot of short stories together, and our favorite author of short stories is Ambrose Bierce. And when I was surprisingly little, he read me Dharma Bombs and On the Road and Cannery Road. But I've reread them recently, and I realized he left a lot of stuff out. And what we liked about him is, even when we were tiny, he was really honest with us about everything. And so when Delia was about 5 years old, we went to this little amusement park, and she was about to get on a ride, and she was scared. So she asked him if she would be okay, and he told her, "I'm 99.99% sure that you'll be okay." And even though he was really honest with us, the Tooth Fairy and my dad had suspiciously similar handwriting. So one night, the Tooth Fairy didn't show up when she was supposed to. But the next day she did, and I got a note that said that there had been a school bus crash in China. He told me that no one was hurt, but a lot of kids lost their teeth. Because we liked hotel pools and we liked to run up and down the halls. And most of you probably know that Delia had a brain tumor when she was really little, and she turned out better than fine, obviously, but she still had to have a lot of MRIs for a lot of years. So from the ages of 3 to 18, my dad was always the one to take her to her MRIs. And they wouldn't let him be in the machine with her, which is what he would have wanted. So they let him stand outside and hold her foot. And they gave her a mirror so she could see his face. And he always took her to Shark's Candy for chocolate afterwards. He sang us Tom Paxton and Bob Dylan songs. He taught us to play poker before we could read. Played 5-card draw and blackjack. I used to sit on his lap while he played freestyle on his computer, and he would always let me put in the last ace, so it felt like I won. He taught us how to play pool and recently bumper pool. Whenever Delia and I wanted to get a new lunchbox, he would just use our old one. So that's why if you ever saw him walking to BCTC carrying a purple lunchbox with butterflies on it, it used to be Delia's. He taught me how to ride a bike at Bell Park. He took us to smell the lilacs that were by the Bell House, and he lifted us up so we could smell the ones blooming up top. He was an Irish step dance dad, and he drove us around the country to dance competitions and drove us to Cincinnati for just for dance classes. and he learned how to do her hair and tie her dance shoes the right way. He was a Girl Scout cookie dad too, so all Girl Scout troops have to have a parent who's in charge of the organizing and ordering of the cookies, and it's traditionally a cookie mom, but my dad was the only cookie dad in Fayette County and maybe ever. He was also a baseball dad. He came to every single one of my Little League games at Ecton Park. And in my first year of Little League, I was really bad at it. And about halfway through the season, he was driving me to a game, and I was sulking in the backseat because I was really bad and I didn't want to go. And he pulled over and he told me, you have one of two choices. Either I can take you home right now and you can never tell me ever again that you wished you played Little League, or you can go out there and you can give it your all. And he told me, you cannot half-ass this. And I was 9. But because of that, I went on to play over at Ecton Park in Little League for 4 more years. And he was the reason that I eventually got a little less terrible at baseball, because pretty much every day in the summer we would go to Bell Park and we would play pitch and catch. And then he would toss me a bunch of tennis balls to hit. And when Jake Gibbs is your dad, you don't get to go on normal vacations ever. So we never went to Disney World or anything. He took us to upstate New York every summer, and Canada, and Ireland, and Spain, and we even went on a cross-country road trip over to the West Coast. And when we were driving, we had to stop all the time, mostly at bookstores. And we also had to stop at every post office to check it out to see if there's a WPA mural painted inside. When we were in New York, we always had to stop at the canal locks because he really liked those for some reason, and I thought they were really stupid. And when we traveled with him and stayed in hotels, he would get up early because he'd want to read, but he didn't want to wake us up by turning on the light, so he would bring a chair into the bathroom to read. We went on a lot of trips with him to special collections across the country where we worked as his research assistants on his little blue book bibliography. And when Delia and I were 12 and 15, he made us go on our first long bike trip down the Erie Canal, which was about 200 miles with my mom and my Uncle Andy. And we did it without, we weren't super happy about it at the time, but we eventually grew to love biking. And just last year, my dad and Delia went on a 300-mile bike trip in France. And we had made plans to go on a big bike trip next year once I finished grad school. About once a year, he would take one of us on his big clothing shopping spree, which consisted of going to Goodwill to get a single button-down. For holidays and his birthday, he never wanted gifts, but he really liked giving coupons. So when we were little, we gave him coupons for hugs. But once I moved away from home, I started giving him coupons and said I would call him every Sunday. And if it got past like 9 p.m. on a Sunday, he would text me a picture of the coupon to remind me. But the picture was upside down because he couldn't figure out how to put it. And because sometimes he felt like he wasn't the favorite child, like my Aunt Kitty mentioned, he was really, really careful to make sure that Delia and I knew that he loved us exactly 100% equally. So if he ever had something nice to say about me, he would immediately say something nice about Delia too. And he would tell me that I was the best kid in my age category and that my sister was the best kid in her age category. Even though I have no doubt that he loved us exactly equally, I know that we both had our own special, unique relationships with him. He worried a lot about us, about me and my sister, and so he had all these really funny rules that he made up, things we couldn't do. So these are just a few of them, but you're never allowed to leave the house with the dryer running because it could explode. We weren't allowed to climb trees after it rained because they could be slippery. We weren't allowed to knit in the front seat of the car in case the airbag went off and punctured our car. really overprotective when it came to our dating lives, but he was the exact opposite. He recognized that we were both autonomous beings, and he respected our choices and knew we were smart. And so, of every single man Delaney or I have ever dated, he has had just two things to say about them. The first thing he always said was, if you like him, then I like him. And the second he said is, he's got good taste. When Delia was trying to decide where to go to college, she told him she was worried that she would make the wrong choice. And he told her that there's no right decisions in life, there's just different choices that yield different results. So you just have to pick something, and you need to stick with that decision. My mom taught yoga class on Wednesday night, or has taught yoga class on Wednesday night for a very, very long time, and so that meant that every Wednesday night, the three of us would go out to dinner somewhere, like at Philly's Barbecue, or Sav's, or Sahara, or Alfalfa, of course. And this tradition has extended well into our adulthood. So when Delia was a student at University of Dayton, sometimes me and him would drive up to see her on Wednesday nights, which was a 6-hour round trip, just for you. He bestowed upon us so much knowledge that I wish I could remember all of it, but it's a lot. And so if I had a question about anything at all, like from the origins of the 7 liberal arts, or if I had questions about specific aspects of the potato famine, or recently we've been talking a lot about the philosophy of science, he was always the first person I'd ask, even before Google. And he'd always start with saying, well, I don't know much about this topic, and it always turned out he didn't know a lot about that topic. He told us stories about his childhood in Troy, New York, where his friends called him Gibbsy. He's told us stories about his time at Brockport, his time in California collecting unemployment and hanging out at the beach. His motorcycle trips, his hitchhiking trips, the flop house, the co-op house in Lexington, FHOA, the grocery stores he worked in, the Good Foods Co-op, the old alfalfa on Limestone, my mom before we were born, and of course the house they lived in on Maxwell. And because he was just this really cool old guy, he had a lot of really cool old guy friends. And so Delia and I we're really lucky to have a lot of uncles that are not biologically related to us. And so the first ones I always think of are Jim Happ and Andy Shells and Great Gunther. But there's a whole lot more. And I know my dad would really be happy to know that we can still call them when we have questions about things like our taxes or our cars or money. We relied on him for a lot of stuff like that. And he showed us what a marriage should look like by loving our mother deeply, unconditionally, and without bounds. They had a lot of fun together, and they went to see live music a lot, and to restaurants and bars every weekend, and to the Kentucky Theater, and they went for walks and on bike rides. And I'm not sure how this is possible, but they managed to find stuff to talk about after 41 years. But they were also the kind of couple who could share a comfortable and loving silence. And so when I think of them, I have to think of him in his reading chair in his office, and my mom on the couch in the living room, where they were both doing their separate things while still being able to see each other. And although my dad was endlessly wise and supportive, he also understood his limitations. And so sometimes when I was upset about something that he felt was out of his wheelhouse, he would tell me, you should go talk to your mom about this because she's a really good person to talk to. And so between my parents and their complementary forms of wisdom, I've never had a problem that couldn't be fixed. And together, my mom and dad made the best parenting team I could imagine. They shared the same values, but were different enough to balance each other out. So Delia and I could not have grown up in a more supportive or loving household. And I just want to end this with a memory from the last time I visited town, which was just a few weeks ago. Delia and I decided to spend the night at my parents' house on Del Mar, which is something my dad always wanted us to do, but we rarely did. And so we got home kind of late, and as we walked onto the porch, we caught a glimpse of my parents through the window. And they were sitting right next to each other on the couch, and they were drinking wine and they were laughing. And when my dad saw us through the window, his face just lit up, and he literally ran to the door to greet us. And then all three of us sat on the couch together, and he had one arm around Delia and one arm around me. And and he was just really happy.
Hi, I'm Anita Courtney, and I'm Jake Gibbs' wife. I feel like I have been crowd surfing this week, you know, how you hold people up in a concert and like carry them across. You all have held me up so I haven't crashed. I have felt protected and even airborne sometimes this week in the hands of your collective love and support. Your outpouring of appreciation and respect for Jake Gibbs has continually amazed me. You have treated my daughters and me with such tenderness, generosity, and helpfulness. Though I would have predicted that my predominant emotion would be grief this week, gratitude has been bigger. Gratitude for getting to spend 41 years with Jake, and gratitude for this community. I know grief will have its day again and again, but for now, love is in the foreground. You have taught me 1,000 ways how to be with a family who is deeply hurting. I am literally taking notes so I can give to others when they're in this position what you all have given to us. A Jake story. We talked about death a lot this year. And when I asked him if he went first, what he would like for his funeral, in his classic Jake style, he said, "Do whatever you want, I'll be dead." And then he paused and he said, "Well, who would come?" He would be absolutely floored. He had no idea that you all thought about him in this way. But I think it was his humility that so many of us loved in him. Joanna James often said just how solid Jake Gibbs was. He never lied. He never revealed anyone's secret. Believe me, I tried to drag some things out of him. He would not. He never played games. He didn't try to please people. His allegiance was to what was right. When a new council issue came up and I would ask him in the process how he was going to vote, he would often answer, "I don't know. I don't have all the facts yet." One year for Valentine's Day, Jake gave me the Lucinda Williams album, When the Spirit Meets the Bone. And if anybody knows me well, I take a lot of my guidance from good song lyrics. So I'd like to read a few lines from this song because I dubbed it our official love song. And I share it with you because I think it's a really great description about what friendship is and about what being comfortable with someone is. And it's called "Stowaway in My Heart." Thank you for giving me a place to keep my love. I don't need anything special, none of that stuff. I'm a stowaway in your heart, and that's enough. Thank you for giving me a place to close my eyes. You don't have to promise heaven or paradise. I'm a stowaway in your heart, and that's the prize. Thank you for giving me a place to take my blue. Don't have to say Hail Mary or Hallelujah. I'm a stowaway in your heart, and that will do. Thank you for giving me a place to hang around. You don't have to be an angel or wear a crown. I'm a stowaway in your heart. I won't make a sound.
I'm a friend of Jake's and Nini's and Delia and Delaney's. I hadn't written out a thing here, but people talking about Jake's red truck reminded me early on when I knew him. I realized what a great sense of humor he had when he had this funky old truck, and he had a black old dial-up phone in it next to it. So come up to a stoplight next to somebody on your cell phone. He just loved to laugh and found a lot of things in life pretty entertaining. But I wanted to say something about Jake as a man. And as a man, I am often ashamed and heartbroken by what powerful men have done in our world. And I see men using their strength to prey on the vulnerable, the young, the poor, to flaunting their hoarded riches while others go hungry, and feeding the natural world into their machines. And I just appreciate what a different kind of powerful man Jake was. Jake was a true Celtic warrior. He used his unassuming strength to protect his family, his friends, and the community that he so fiercely loved. The work boots in front of the armchair piled high with books marked Jake's fortress and his refuge. That chair was a love seat because Jake loved sitting there reading and gathering information from all of these far-flung fields and carefully filing it in this prodigious memory. And like most people who got a lot done, Jake worked hard, but he wasn't a workaholic. He didn't work tirelessly. He always favored the International Nap Hour. He always had time for his family, for his friends, for riding a bike, taking a walk, listening to good music, having a laugh, going to the coffee shop, having a beer at the local bars. I kind of think that Jake was able to practice a mental jiu-jitsu. He used his incredible knowledge of history to identify leverage points where a modest amount of effort could have a really fruitful outcome. And he acted as in a lot of ways, like an enzyme or a catalyst in the community, in that he could enable others to do things without himself being consumed by the process. Although Jake had no time for religion, he was very skilled in what the Quakers called discernment. He could kind of grasping the difference between the signal and the noise, between the difference between an idea that was right and an idea whose time had come. The world's becoming more complex. We already need to be making important decisions about artificial intelligence, genetics, our role, our relationship with nature. We really need more guys, more leaders, men, women like Jake, who are willing to do the work, to get the deep and nuanced knowledge that we're going to need to make good decisions. More than that, we'll need leaders like Jake, who understand that generosity is not simply acts of kindness. It's an unbroken state of being, the definition of functional love. Jake's generosity flowed from his core. And the power of that generosity extended far beyond those close to him, into making sure that intersections were safe for people to walk, and that the city of Lexington would be covered with trees and a beautiful place long after he was gone. 100 years after women have finally gotten the right to vote, it's way past time for them to have more say in what gets done. But as a man, I'm filled with hope when I think about what men could do if they were able to use strength in the way that Jake did. And he was a whole lot closer to what we could be than what we have been. So I thank him for that. I miss him already. I love him and his family. Thank you.
Jake on council, along with several current and past council members, some who are with us today. And let me also recognize the aides that work on the council floor and our council staff, and Sally Warfield, who was Jake's partner in the council office. Anita, Delaney, thank you for sharing Jake with us. He loved you, ladies. You were always at the top of his mind, and he was so happy and proud of his wife and daughters. Jake was truly something special. I had some comments that actually referenced my quote in the paper, but I think Vice Mayor kind of summed it up. I think we all know that Jake was a rock star. And he dressed down and became a regular guy. And through his experience, his knowledge, and the way he talked to people, it was easy to connect with Jake. He could connect with you on a lot of levels about a lot of different things. So I won't spend a lot of time going into that. I wrote like a 3-minute story. But I'm gonna try to leave some time for others to share. What I learned today is me and Jake had a whole lot in common. We both grew up being called Jimmy, which I hated. I don't know. I didn't like it very much. But me and Jake we were friends and we got along real good on council. But I think that my claim to fame and what really binded us together was there was this one issue that Jake had taken a position on, and a large group of constituents came down to council to tell him how he was wrong. And I couldn't take it. I mean, they were lighting into Jake. And if you know him and if you worked with him, you know he was doing what he felt was right, what he felt was in the best interest of the people that he served and what was best for the city. So after they all got through speaking, I don't think Jake commented, I think he just took it. And I hit the microphone and I said as politely as I could that y'all don't know what y'all have in Jake. Jake is the people's champ. Jake is here doing the best that he can to represent everyone. Jake came up to me after that, thanked me for it, and then he hugged me. And then he continued to hug me. I'd see Jake right before we got ready to go on break, and Jake say, "Have a good break," and I would extend my hand, and here he comes hugging me. I probably hugged Jake more than any man, which is completely all right. So sticking with the theme of defending Jake, the comment about Jake not being a very good athlete, I take offense to. Jake is a very good bowler. I mean, Jake, we bowled last night, and the whole time I kept thinking, if Jake was here, he'd just be rolling strikes. I think he threw three strikes in a row the last time. Jake is pretty coordinated. I play poker with Jake. To be able to hold your handful of cards and to bring a beer to your mouth takes a lot of coordination. So, in closing, Jake was genuine. Jake treated people with a genuine dignity and respect. And I know there's a lot of people in this room that have had Jake as a friend, a family member, far longer than I have. And I enjoy hearing all those stories about him. Just be thankful for the time and the memories that you were able to make with him, because I'm thankful for the memories. I'm thankful that our paths crossed and we became friends, and I got to create some memories of my own. And family, please take comfort in knowing that our city, our country, and the world is better because of Jake Gibbs. Thank you.
As many of you know, Jake co-founded Trees Lexington, a local nonprofit for which he served as a dedicated board member and former president. Unofficially, Jake also would claim the superlative of our beloved mascot, and though this is just my personal nomination, the best dang board meeting host of all time. It was around Jake and Anita's dining room table that we gathered, sometimes to plan and be industrious, and sometimes to have loud tree family debates. Though mostly it was time for us to dream of all things trees for the future. And Jake had some really beautiful dreams, and he always brought his full self to the table. Jake had a love of trees so great that he, a man in his mid-60s, nearing full retirement, spoke not about playing golf, but instead about how he loved the idea of turning those golf courses into reforested nature spaces. Advocating for such an idea would have likely gotten some serious pushback, but Jake, much like a magnificent tree himself, could be trusted to stand firmly and confidently by his ideas and values. Jake was a mover and a shaker in the tree community, so much that in all his moving and shaking, he played a key role in the accidental creation of a whole new oak species, as if we needed any more to confuse us. Following Trees Lexington's big pocket nursery distribution last April, Jake, at some point, stated that we had sent out 50 overcap oaks, And I said in my anxious tone that several people in the room probably have been witness to, Jake, what do you mean? What is an overcap oak? Did we order overcap oaks? What is that? You see, an overcap oak did not exist until April 19th, 2019, before which it was the overcup oak for about 230 years. But a simple mislabeling created a grassroots revolution in true Jake Gibbs style, an oak classification that I plan to honor for the rest of my time as a tree care professional. I will only plant overcap oaks from here on out, and I encourage you to do the same. Jake was a beautiful personification of one of my favorite mantras: the deeper the roots, the higher the branches. Jake had deep roots in this community. Because of this, Jake had the will and the capacity to grow a full and vibrant canopy under which the people and ideas that he cared for could find a place to lean on, a place of comfort, inspiration, and support. When it came to trees, Jake had an intense desire to branch high and wide, which for him meant taking on a responsibility to serve and grow others' appreciation for trees. He strove to achieve that goal with such intensity and sometimes with angst that there were times I had to look at him and say, "It's going to be okay, we do what we can, and no matter how few or how many people we connect with, we are doing good work." I see now that in those situations, I was hoping to give back to Jake what he had so graciously given me during our time working together: a soft place to land, a person to confide in and ask for help, and a place for reassurance that we are all in this together. So many times I left his home after speaking with him about our work and how we saw it expanding, thinking, you know what? Maybe we can do this. Maybe now is the time for trees. And I say to you today, it is the time for trees. Or whatever it is you're working towards contributing to the collective good. We can do this, whatever it is, in honor of him. Maybe, like me, with Jake's passing, you feel called back to something strongly that you thought you needed to take a step back from. Maybe it was something that required you to be a little stubborn, to deepen your roots, to face the wind. For me, it was tree work, from which I had taken a step back from for fear of not having enough individual capacity to make a difference. But the death of a loved one commands presence of both mind and heart. And that presence brings clarity to things that we might have been turning away from. And I speak with confidence this feeling of a fire growing in my heart, this calling to keep going. To keep sowing the seeds, and to make my work with trees to be an extension of my spirit, ever more growing, to love it, and to honor it, and to embody it, just like Jake. As different as each of us are, we are all here because we loved and respected Jake. Together on this day, and in all the days to follow, may we feel called to stand united, like a beautiful, diverse forest, stubborn and resilient by the many things that Jake honored and valued in his life and work. Thank you.
My name is Debbie Dean. I taught the 6 a.m. Jumpstart class at the House Street YMCA 3 days a week for more than 20 years. Jake Gibbs was one of the early members of our class. For many years, Jake was in class all 3 days, every week, exercising on the front row. And yes, he was coordinated. There was a particular exercise that Jake complained about, so I decided I would add a little more to that move, making it a little harder, and then name it the Jake. Boy, did he moan and groan about it, but he did it, and he even dealt with the class clapping for him every time we did the Jake. Just another quick share about Jake in class. At Christmas time, Jake would come to me before class and say, "Debbie, you're not going to play Christmas music today, are you?" If I said, "No, not today, Jake," he would be thrilled. But if I said, "Yeah, I'm going to play some Christmas music today, it's almost Christmas," he would walk away grumbling, but he would never leave class. Although Jake no longer attended class due first to his knee issues and then later because he decided it was just too early to get up. He continued his loyalty to the class by always donating to our WISE annual giving campaign in the name of our Jumpstart class. And he would suggest to new members that they should try that 6 a.m. class. To me, Jake epitomized everything our Jumpstart class values: community, leadership, and kindness. Jake, we will always miss you, we will forever love you, and we will never stop doing the Jake. Thank you.
Well, the sun's shining today for the first time in months, right? It's kind of appropriate, what do you think? Good morning, everybody. I guess it's still morning, maybe it's not. My name is Dave Elsen, and I have the privilege of working at the YMCA. So for you YMCA folks out there, I see a lot of you guys out there, you folks, you're going to know this stuff. But for those of you who are not Y members, or didn't know that part of Jake's life, I got to tell you something that happened down there. Several things that happened down there. It's pretty extraordinary if you stop and think about it. 5 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, sitting at my desk, I would hear, "Could you please give me bag number 9? Then you knew Jake was at the YMCA, because that was his laundry bag, bag number 9. This went on for years. Really, it went on for decades. 5 days a week for decades, Jake would visit the wife. It's really extraordinary if you think about it. I don't recall a YMCA without Jake Gibbs. Jake loved the Y, and the YMCA loved Jake. Jake was unique. We all know that. We've heard about that. Jake was unique. Jake was authentic. And because of that, being authentic and unique, there were really some extraordinary things happening. Some extraordinary friendships were formed at the YMCA. Authentic, unique friendships. These friendships were with people that were so different that you can't possibly imagine this. These people were so different. Some of them are out here today. His lunch bunch is sitting over here. These people are extraordinarily different. He was great friends with Ben Kaufman. You ever know Ben Kaufman? How does that happen? I hope Ben's not out there. Yet they put their differences aside and they came together as friends. And there's magic there. Wouldn't you agree with that? Everybody was equal with Jake, right? Short hair, long hair, three-piece suits, blue jeans, brown skin, white skin. It didn't matter because everybody was equal. You know, you couldn't imagine more unlikely pair of people coming together. It really was extraordinary. It is extraordinary. Jake was authentic. Jake was unique. Jake accepted people for what they were, and you know what? They accepted him. It was really something awesome to witness. So Delia, Delaney, Anita, you know, we have work to do. We've got to keep walking like Jake did. We have to keep walking. We have to walk forward. And I thought, what does that mean for me? So for me today, in Jake's honor, and maybe you all, I don't know. Maybe we could be a little bit more authentic, like he was. Yeah, we can go ahead and be more unique and celebrate that too. But most importantly, we could be accepting of others. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lambert-Warfield, and I am Jake's legislative aide for the 3rd District Council Office. So I want to second what the Vice Mayor was saying about his dedication. The night before Jake passed, we were texting until 10 o'clock that night about the composting program and the environmental alternatives that he wanted to present for leaves in Lexington, 10 o'clock that night. And so the next day, when I learned that Jake had died, I couldn't believe it. And my friends in the office, and I am so blessed to say that I have so many who are here and who loved Jake. They kept encouraging me to get out of the office, and it was hard to articulate then, but I want to say now that Jake's spirit, his memory, was never going to be in that office. So let's just put a pin on that. Jake loved to travel. So many times he would let me know that I needed to cover for him because he was going to be traveling frequently with his family to see his daughter, traveling with his daughter. Oh, the trip to France, the cycling in France was just amazing. Traveling with his wife. And he afforded me the same courtesy. All I would have to do is say, Jake, my daughter's got the sniffles, and he'd say, go home, go be with her. Family comes first. That was Jake's mantra. Family comes first. And so he spent a lot of time out of the office with his family. And we're going to segue into a Jake story here. Out of the office doing other interesting things. So one of those trips, I was kind of covering for him, and I remember somebody asked me, hey, how's work going? I was like, you know, it's been a little busy. Jake's out of the office. He's traveling. And they said, oh, yeah, where's Jake going this time? And I said, to an anarchist convention. But the best part of that is when he came back and he got to tell me about it, and he was like, Sally, yeah, there was this great presentation, and people were doing things kind of like we did at Alfalfa, you know, and it was all equals, and they were running a business like equals, and it was a great kind of anarchist way to do things. And somebody stood up and she was like, yeah, no, this is stupid, we need to burn capitalism to the ground. And I was like, yeah, but they're doing a great job, but I so appreciated that because they're really an anarchist convention if no one's fighting. And I appreciate that it was in that spirit of anarchy that Jake never treated me like a subordinate. He treated me like a partner. We were a team of two, and working together equally, we could do the best work we could for the district. And so, whenever Jake and I would talk, or we would have a thorny issue and he would tell me his opinions, I would never hesitate, God bless him, I would never hesitate to say, Jake, you're wrong. And then he would fire me. And after about 30 seconds, he would say, oh, wait a minute, no, I don't want to have to answer all those emails, you're hired again. I've probably been fired 20 times over the last 6 years and immediately rehired. But going back to the idea of Jake never being in the office, his memory not being in the office, I made kind of a list when I stepped outside, because I took their advice. I went outside, I went for a walk, and that was really when my heart broke. Because you can't be in the 3rd District and not be in the memory of Jake Gibbs. He was everywhere in this district. And everywhere he went, he was there 100%. So let me just take you through where I walked Tuesday with Jake. Jake is in the Kentucky Theater, where you can sit in his sponsored seat. He is obviously in Alfalfa, where you can order the Peter and Jake for breakfast or lunch. He was always so embarrassed by that, by the way. I would have been so tickled to have a breakfast item named after me. He's in the Pam Miller Downtown Arts Center. He was so thrilled to be able to rename, and where he enjoyed numerous arts performances. When you go to Cheapside, Jake is in the new courthouse, a renovation he wholeheartedly supported. He is in the Fifth Third Pavilion, where he helped purchase siding so the farmers market could be open comfortably year-round. And he is in the absence of the Confederate statues that he voted to remove from our downtown. Jake is on the sidewalks that he walked every day and worked to keep repaired for the safety of our pedestrians. Jake will be in the Town Branch Trail he enthusiastically supported and voted to fund. He is in our bike lanes that he worked for in our city's budget, and in bike racks he purchased with our district's infrastructure dollars. Jake is in speed tables, crosswalks, and traffic lines. He is in any number of public works of art and in places of natural beauty, where he worked to protect and enhance our urban tree canopy through government funding and by raising private dollars through Trees Lexington, which he founded. No constituent, no visitor of the 3rd District has to go very far at all to be with the memory of Jake Gibbs. You just have to step outside. Thank you. Everybody stand up for me. You've been sitting, you've been wonderful. Please sing these amazing. You may sit, but please prepare to stand and sit quite a bit really fast. Because before we go outside to the wonderful food that is going to be presented by the only certified green caterer in the state of Kentucky, the Green Catering, we're going to learn just a little bit about each other. Anita identified 32 categories, and I know there's 32 more, of ways that people know Jake and are connected to him. I think in the service of time, we'll do some of the 32, and we will let you see what those 32 are and all of the things that are going to be following, where people can see and continue to enjoy the memory and the hope that we have for what Jake has given us. So here we're going to do, I'm going to ask people to stand if. This is going to be stand up for Jake. Stand up if you're a member of Jake's family, please. Thank you so much. So stand if you are a former student of Jake's at BCTC or UK. These are so good. I hate to shortchange them, but I think we will. We'll share them later. Stand if you exercised or took a shower or shared a coffee at the YMCA. Stand if Jake Gibbs ever changed your mind about something. If you ever disagreed with Jake, or maybe he pissed you off. Stand if you worked with Jake at LFUCG in any capacity. Stand if you ever took a bike ride or a walk with Jake. Stand up if your kids like Jake. You can see that this might go on. And actually, I'm going to share the categories, but I'm going to suggest that you may develop your own categories and share with Anita and the family too, of ways to know Jake, because there were so many. This is what a man gets to have in his life, all these connections. If he doesn't watch television, doesn't attend to sports, doesn't do social media, reads all the time, and is a generous and loving spirit. May we all learn from that. So to Jake's first family, and those who loved him through his life, thank you for appreciating and enjoying him enough to make the hard work, do the hard work of travel and be with us. It's a joy to have you. To his family here in Lexington, as others have said, thank you for sharing him with this community. His work will continue to unfold. Trees will grow and heal the earth. Former students will thrive and offer strength and support to a widening stream of others because of the nourishment they get from Jake's generous nature and his habits. Grace talked so beautifully about that. To Jake's colleagues and countless friends, we can choose to learn from his good life. We can do the things we know Jake would have been doing and would like us to do. Walk more, write less, use less paper, plant a lot of trees, watch more movies, travel more, use more logic, listen more, judge less, and find it in ourselves to be kind to more people than we thought we could. That's enough words. Jake's family invites you to a reception in the lobby. West 6 has contributed plenty of beer. There are other good things to drink as well that are not alcoholic. I want to let you know about one more opportunity today. Thanks to the generosity of Professor Kathy Urch, Ivan Rome, and others at UK, not only has today's gathering been videotaped, but they invite you to add your short remembrance of Jake to today's video record if you would like. If you want to do this, if you'd like to take a short remembrance of Jake, stay here in Kentucky, come down here, right down here. While the reception is underway, yes, you have to choose, I'm sorry about that. And then finally, I'll say that the screen in the lobby includes information for people who want to continue to visit and talk about Jake after the Kentucky Theater needs us out. Jake would recommend a locally owned place, and there are a lot of them nearby, but there are several that have offered to be particularly ready to receive us. Thank you to Alfalfa, A Cup of Commonwealth, Gather, and West 6. You can check the screen in the lobby for more information if you don't know the addresses for those places. I would also like to say that the sign-in books, we have these books which we had to hurry people in who didn't get to sign. If you did not get to sign them, they're going to be back out in the lobby, I think back out on tables. So please make your way to those tables and sign the book, which the family really appreciate. Thank you all. Beautiful community, beautiful family. Let's go eat.
One of these days, one of these days, one of these days, and it won't be long, won't be long, won't be long, won't be long. One of these days, one of these days, one of these days.